Christianity prevailed in the Mediterranean at a time when the Roman Empire was in decline. Around the same time, monasticism and its ascetic lifestyle made its appearance. It was therefore expected that the historiography of recent centuries would study the relationship between Christianity and collapse. The literature, initially, approached the phenomenon in a particularly negative way. The most characteristic is perhaps Edward Gibbon's work on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, published in the late 18th century. He accuses the ascetics of being inspired by an enthusiasm that presented man as a criminal and God as a tyrant, and of abusing the most rigid principles of the Gospels. It is possible that Gibbon developed these ideas about the pernicious influence of Christianity and its monasticism, inspired by the spirit of the Enlightenment. John Bagnell Berry also seems to make negative judgments in his study of the late Roman Empire, 1889, when he referred to abstinence from sexual intercourse, advocated by asceticism, and the changes that Christianity brought to family relations. Regarding the former, he considers that it contributed on the one hand to low birth rates and on the other to spiritual decline. Regarding relations within the family, Berry concludes that asceticism, by invading family life, caused considerable suffering, on the one hand by creating a gap in relations between men and women, and on the other by despairing parents when their child desired the solitary life of an ascetic. Arnold Hugh Martin Jones has focused a lot on the question of the position of various social classes and professional categories: members of the Senate, local aristocracies, professional army, members of the civil service church, including monks in production. According to him, the church produced a large number of idle mouths of monks who lived off the alms of the peasants without contributing anything. Brian War Perkins seems to agree with his views in his own study on the fall of Rome. The views on the disastrous effects caused by monasticism were also repeated by Michael Grant in his own study on the fall of the Roman Empire, published in the mid-1970s. More specifically, Grant blamed the monks for the fact that at a time when the empire needed more than ever, on the one hand, manpower, and on the other hand, money to avoid succumbing to invasions, the monks not only deprived both, but also called on others to do the same. John Holland Smith, who seems to be inspired by anti-Christian sentiments in his work, has called the admiration for the ascetic lifestyle a blow to the Roman world. Within a few decades, a multitude of monks appeared who justified their eccentric and often criminal behavior by invoking their sacred mission, to the point that peace was threatened and measures had to be taken to bring it under control. However, Smith, although to a large extent seems to echo the views of the last Greek polytheist historian, Zosimus, who lived in the 6th century, does not seem to view the emergence of Arianism, a religious alternative within Christianity, negatively. At the same time, he keeps his distance from the so-called theurgs, figures of late Greco-Roman paganism, who combined religion, philosophy, and magic. On the other hand, Michael Rostovtsev, in his Roman history, has identified the causes of decline and collapse, not in Christianity, but in the deprivation of freedoms, the non-participation of the lower classes in the prosperity of the empire, the indifference of the rich, and in ideals such as selfishness, the pursuit of profit exclusively, and the search for pleasures. Therefore, many people sought salvation not in earthly life, but beyond it. They took refuge in religion. Thus, the prevalence of Christianity is understood as a symptom of the collapse, not its cause. Geza Alfoldi, in his study of Roman society, responded to the views on the corrupting influence of Christianity. According to him, Christianity did not undermine Roman patriotism, since the patriotism of Christians was not inferior to that of polytheists. As an example, he cites the phrase of Saint Jerome, who lived between the 4th and 5th centuries: "The Roman world is collapsing, and yet we do not bow our heads." However, it is important to say the following. Alfoldi believes that the Christianization of the Germanic tribes, even in its Arianist version, created a problem for the Roman Empire. This created a current of sympathy from the Christianized Romans towards the Christianized Germans, at a time when the latter's invasions were intensifying. An opposing view on the issue of low birth rate has been expressed by Peter Heather, who not only argued that the number of monks numbered only a few thousand and paled in comparison to the 6,000 individuals who, until the beginning of the 5th century, made up the Roman bureaucracy, but also expressed the view that population levels were increasing at that time. Which of the two approaches do you consider to be closer to the truth? Also, do you believe that that era has common characteristics with today's?